Welcome back to another episode of the Heart Healthy Hustle Show. It's already April 22nd, 2019. Easter was yesterday, so happy Easter. Before we get into this episode, I'm going to preface it with this. Today's guest and the conversation had is incredible. It's a very soulful conversation. The weekend of Easter would be the perfect weekend to launch this interview. Here's a brief look into the events that happened that brought this interview to fruition. I was having a brief setback early February, perhaps January. There was a night where I had been working all week, traveling. I had just gotten back into town, something like that. And it was one of those weekends where I didn't have the episode pre-edited and ready to rock for Monday and just hit publish. It was something I had put off until the last minute. I had to edit, upload, publish, schedule, everything on like Sunday night. I really don't like doing that. I rarely do that anymore. However, this night it was down to the wire. It was already about 10 p.m., I believe. So something you don't know about my desk setup, I have right under my monitor, it's not there anymore, but I had a Post-it note on there. It said, I have a story for you. And then it said, comma, and your listeners, because I've been actively appearing on other podcasts to promote the Heart Healthy Hustle. I had that Post-it note sitting right there below the monitor. I was having a really interesting setback in that moment where I didn't want to edit this, not this particular episode. This is back that night when I had put it off to the last minute. It was actually Ron Walborn. If you remember episode 54, I believe, it was with Ron Walborn. I felt so overwhelmed. I felt angry. I felt irritated. Some functions on my keyboard weren't working with the software, and the editing was a huge headache. Whereas I normally would just tap a button and this thing would delete or go. It wasn't doing that, so I had to manually click through. I restarted it. It still was doing it. I didn't know what to do. I was so upset because I was so tired. I was already down to the wire. I don't usually get like that with editing. It takes time, of course, hours on hours, but it's a breeze. It's not something that is a problem for me. I enjoy the process. But this time it was different. I battled for like 20, 30 minutes until I only had 5 minutes of the episode edited, maybe 10 minutes. And I was so frustrated, I just stopped. I sat down fuming in frustration. I go and I watched an interview, one of Ed Milet's interviews with Tim Storey, today's guest. I watched the whole thing. The interview with Tim Storey was entitled How to Make a Comeback. And it was a great interview with Ed Milet interviewing Tim Storey about his story and everything like that and how to make a comeback. And Tim talks about God's favor in that episode, all these things. Very inspiring. A very inspirational interview. I finished watching that, and by the end of that interview with Ed and Tim, my state of mind changed back to being grounded and grateful and recognizing God's favor is on my life, on my walk. One of my favorite songs in 2017 was by an artist called John Mark McMillan, and the song is called Future Past. And all these really interesting, these wild realizations were hitting me one after the other, and I knew they were from God. I'm not trying to sound woo-woo or anything. This is legit. I'm just sharing you the story. So after watching that interview with Tim and Ed, I sit down right in front of my computer on this, at the foot of my bed, I have like a bench I built, and I sit there and I just listen to this song, and I close my eyes, and I felt a prompting to sit and listen to that song specifically and meditate. So as it's playing, I'm about 3/4 of the way through. I open my eyes. I see that Post-it note right at eye level, and all I could see on there was, I've got a story for you. And I felt overwhelmingly encouraged. Then I kept listening to the end of that song, and I felt this strong urge to continue living wide open. So you're going to notice that a bit of a trend with episodes recently will include a lot more of where I stand spiritually speaking. I would hope that you remain curious. If you disagree, that you would let me know, and we can and just learn about each other's journeys. But I am not done telling the story about how I got connected with Tim. Tim is personal friends with Oprah. He's spoken on Grant Cardone's 10X stage. He's a world famous author. He literally travels the world serving. And, I appreciate his valuable time that we spent together. Now, the way I got in touch with Tim was actually through Instagram direct message. So he gets back right away almost. Tim just says straight to the point, what do you want to do? And he could tell at that point that I was serious. And I said, I want to do an interview with you. And so he hits me back with a response and he said, what's your phone number? And that's basically all it said. And I'm thinking, here it is. So I give him my phone number. Now, that night, it's like 11:20 p.m. Eastern and I'm in bed. I have my phone on though, because I'm thinking in the back of my mind, Tim is the type of man he's going to call. He's going to get the job done. He's going to figure out what's going on. Lo and behold, 15 minutes later, my phone rings. Don't know the number. It just says Los Angeles, California. I'm like, all right, I bet you this is Tim. What are the odds, right? So I pick up the phone. I say, hello. He says, boom, Tim Storey on the phone right there. We chat for about 15 minutes actually on the phone, shared with him this story I just shared with you, aligned on a lot of things and resonated, and it was an honor to speak with him on the phone as well as to host him on this podcast. He shares with me, hey, I know you said on Instagram that if you've reached out to the speakers brokerage that I use, but they usually charge tens of thousands of dollars for me to give a speech. I don't want to charge you. I want to do this podcast for free. I want to come on and speak with you and your audience. I was truly blown away. Tim put me in contact with his direct assistant, direct manager, and we got it set up. This is that interview that you're about to listen to. It's been in the vault. I consider Tim Storey a celebrity. He is somebody who, Tim Storey is an acclaimed author, speaker, and life coach. He's well known around the world. He's hung out with Oprah Winfrey in her backyard on Super Soul Sunday, Oprah's own podcast. He's appeared on Ed Milet's podcast. Again, he's been on TV. He's personal friends with Steve Harvey. He knows everyone. It feels like he knows everyone. And he has a huge heart. Without further ado, let's jump into this incredible interview.
My name is Tim Storey, and you are listening to the Heart Healthy Hustle Show with my good friend, Jonathan Frederick.
What are you getting after? What seeds are you planting? What are you overcoming? Think big. Think even bigger. Take some risks. God's got your back. Go for it. Don't hold back. Don't ever have regrets in your life. Go fail. Go grow from those things. Live your life.
Your identity is not defined by your successes or your failures.
If you're not happy where you're at, you won't be happy where you're going. Choose to do the things that will make you the person you want to be, that will make you a better person next week and next year.
You're going to have to leave some things you're actually good at behind so that you can find what you're wired for, what you're born for.
Being a world-class entrepreneur is being in every area of life excellent.
It is the little things that are so easy not to do.
The best thing that you can do is assume the best in people.
I want people around the world to believe they can do something great with their life.
If I build the biggest business, but I destroy my physical body and I lose my health, I don't think that's success. While you're on the journey climbing to success, never forget the things that matter most.
If you like this episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Tim.
Jonathan.
What's going on, brother? How are you?
Good. Privileged to be on with you, man.
Same, right back at you. I appreciate your time, Tim. Welcome back to another incredible episode of the Heart Healthy Hustle Show. We are here with my friend Tim Storey. Tim is an acclaimed author, speaker, and life coach, helping people create the future they desire. There's a lot more to be said about his intro. Without further ado, I want to let him greet you guys. Tim, welcome to the show.
Great to be on. I like that name. How'd you come up with that? Heart Healthy Hustle.
To be honest, I brainstormed it and kind of came to me. Heart Healthy Hustle is all about hustling with heart, but also with health. And the health is not just physical, it's a comprehensive approach. Because a lot of
I love that.
Yeah, thank you. To give you guys a little bit more about Tim, he's inspired people from all walks of life, from entertainment legends, professional athletes, deprived children throughout the world, having traveled to 75 plus countries, spoken to millions of people. He often meets privately to counsel high-profile leaders in various industries. Tim is the man that most A-list people go to when they're in a crisis or they need help or they need advice. They call on Tim. Tim, we usually start out the show with a favorite success quote, maybe a saying you live by. So share with the audience what you got and what it means to you. Okay,
how about let's give one of my own. Today's decisions are tomorrow's realities. And that is the truth. You know, it's an amazing thing. You can be in a bad spot. You start making better choices, you can get in a better spot. So today's decisions are tomorrow's realities.
We were talking before the show, Tim, about why we wanted to connect. And I think the reason that we resonate is because we're so passionate about lifting up the real ones. We want to see people win and overcome in life, you know, ultimately to be used for the kingdom. But I shared with you before about the story about that there's a story for you and how that inspired me. And then I realized that I had just watched an interview with Tim Storey, and your last name is Story, obviously with an E, but it was just like one of those chills moments, one of those big things. I know God was talking directly to me, and he used you in that. The power of faith has to create breakthrough in your life. I want to focus in on that on the interview today. I know we had spoken about that before the show.
Of course.
What's your advice for those of us with a lower income upbringing or even a traumatic upbringing who have now found continued financial and social success? Like, how do you recommend we stay on course, continue building momentum in the right directions, and effectively handle the shifts to new levels?
Okay. So I honestly think that a lot of what we think about, we overthink things. And if we were to simplify it, because both of our spiritual background, if you go to Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6, a very familiar passage that you definitely would know is trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him and he shall direct your path. So this idea of trusting in God is difficult for many, many people. But the more you get to know him through relationship, you learn that, man, I could trust in God, but how much can I trust him? In all my ways, I could acknowledge him and he shall direct my path. So I wrote a book in the late 80s about the difference between a good idea and a God idea. A good idea is good. A good idea, we can build freeways, we can send people to the moon. But a God idea is amazing because a good idea usually is man-inspired. A God idea is God-inspired. And a God idea is usually God's super on our natural, which takes it to another level. So what I'm looking for in life as I am studying Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, I want the God idea for my life. So I got to trust. So number one, I have a God idea. Secondly, I should follow the God idea. And then thirdly, I think you like this, somebody is waiting for you on the other side of your obedience to the God idea.
Yeah.
So trust is a big, big factor.
That's huge. I know you're a good friend with Steve Harvey. I actually watched a motivational, I mean, not a speech, but he was talking about the importance of upping your ask and having that trust.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Steve is a great friend. We do a lot of projects together. I do his show quite a bit. I do Facebook Live on Mondays with him a lot. And again, I think we need to simplify things sometimes that, in the Bible, they talk about childlike faith. I feel like, the average person gets so many images in their minds every single day, especially with those devices called the phone. Mm. And I have a lot going on, but if people were to get around me, they'll notice I have an amazing peace about me. I don't get dramatic in the midst of drama. Mm. And my faith is in God. My faith is in God.
I appreciate you sharing that, Tim. It's easy to forget, especially with how pragmatic and overthinking type A personalities can get. Have childlike faith, which also kind of reflects a reckless abandon of need to control everything, as opposed to just enjoying the ride and looking for God's plan.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
A big thing that I'm noticing, and I know you deal with this based on the life coaching side of your career, is I believe, I like the quote, don't let a short-term mistake derail your long-term efforts. How can someone who's been on an upward trajectory, killing it in the game, whatever that is for them, how can they overcome the guilt or even shame of a mistake so it doesn't derail their long-term efforts?
I think that certain mistakes are going to hurt, and that's probably okay. So let's say if somebody's in a relationship and they do something that hurts that relationship, when I'm coaching them, I tell them, feel the pain. I deal with students, college students, high school students that decide not to do well, or they get expelled, or they drop out. And I think you should feel the pain, because what happened is that there are consequences and repercussions. But here's a great thing about this, is that Psalms 103 says God does not treat you as your sins deserve. Wow. So the treatment that we think that we're going to get back is not what he gives back, because he moves, meaning God, in mercy and in grace. And grace fills in the gaps. But the clients that I work with, when they do really silly things, I don't try to talk them out of feeling the pain, but I do want them then to move on. And that is to, ask for forgiveness to the people or from the people that they've wronged. Is that fair? Learn from the situation by taking inventory, like what really happened, what did I do, what I did not do. Take inventory, and then choose to get better by learning from the situation. Because if you try to just act like, everybody makes mistakes and life happens, I guarantee you will continue to repeat that cycle. Unless you got to feel a little bit of the mistake. There's no doubt about that.
What do you think that process should, no one size fits all, but that process, without getting stuck in a rut of, I can't believe this, I allowed this to happen, or I did this. What should we be looking for signs of, like a redemption story through that, so that we don't get stuck too long in a season of, a season of pain, right? But you know what I'm asking?
Yeah. My last book is called Come Back and Beyond. How to Turn Your Setbacks into Comebacks.
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you, Oprah, for making that one of the most read books in the world. This is my subject. This is what I do all day long. But so one of the things you have to do is that you have to look at the area you failed. And secondly, you have to take inventory. So let's say that there is a woman and she cheats on her husband. All right, so now she's got to take inventory. My husband found out. This is the situation I'm in. We were married 12 years. Are we going to make it? So you look at the situation, you take inventory, and then the third thing you have to do is then you have to reach out for help. You got to find people that are stronger than yourselves. And that is where I think sometimes a counselor or a therapist will help, or just a very mature person that can help walk you through the process. And one of the keys in life is, if you're going to err on the side of honesty. There's power in honesty. So I know a lot of people that they wanted to just, not shoot straight. I'm talking famous NFL players I work with, NBA players, rappers, the biggest movie stars in the world. And I don't think that they should tell everybody, because it's not everybody's business.
Yeah.
But some have been shocked by me when I've said to them, to these specific persons that you let down, you need to shoot straight and tell the truth. Because then the truth in that case will set you free. And so that's my answer.
Tim, I'd love to jump into talking about some of your more philanthropic work. For example, you've partnered with phenomenal organizations like Fred Jordan Mission in Los Angeles, Skid Row. I'm really interested to hear what about your upbringing in Compton, what about that plays a part in your desire to continue pouring into the lives of orphans and, for example, Kids Haven Orphanage in Johannesburg, South Africa. Would you talk to us a bit about that work?
Yeah, and thanks for even knowing about that. I think that, being raised lower income, I felt it. I felt cramped. I felt at times trapped. And because of that feeling, you don't know if you're ever going to get out. So when I began to observe other situations where I didn't have to be cramped. In fact, I talk about this sometimes, that the first place I ever saw that was not cramped was a place called Disneyland. I couldn't believe how beautiful it was, man. They were cleaning up the streets after everybody. And there was Mickey Mouse up close, Donald up close. And, that was a lot different than the way we were raised. And so my mind just began to go wild. And some have coined it thinking big in small places. And I began to think big in small places. And I was able, by the will of God and a lot of amazing mentors, to now live this amazing life that I get to live. And so I don't really see it as a give back, because that almost sounds like someone's behind me and I'm just like lifting up the world. I go side by side with human people, with humankind.
Yeah.
If I'm helping somebody that's homeless, I don't make them seem like, hey, you're homeless and I'm mighty and I'm lifting you up.
Yeah, I love that.
I sit in the damn gutter with them.
Yeah.
And just go at it. I'm also doing something with me, Robert Downey Jr., my great buddy, Scott Budnick from The Hangover, Shaka Senghor, Brent Bolthouse. We're doing something for prisoners, Jake Gyllenhaal, called ARC. Well, we are helping with prison reform. Also, Kim Kardashian's now helping us. So I do the homeless. I do prison reform. I go into the inner cities in all these different places I go to and speak on hope. I do something called Music Cares in Compton and in Watts, helping young people get musical instruments. I love it. I love it. It's part of who I am.
Listening allows you to multitask. Let's say you're driving to work, you're running errands, cleaning up on a Saturday, whatever you're doing. And that's why I've reached out to audible.com. I became an Audible affiliate so you can get a free audiobook. I use Audible for many of my audiobooks, tremendous selection of books readily available. So if you don't want to spend a monthly subscription to Audible, put in your name and email, at which point you can listen to that audiobook, keep it forever, and cancel your subscription before 30 days so that you don't get charged for the monthly subscription. This way you get a free book. Go to triplehaudiobook.com. That's HHHaudiobook.com. I'm wondering, Tim, I have a huge heart for helping people, but I feel that people, the quote, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I don't need people to know that I know things or that what I don't know, because the more I find out that I learn, or the more I learn, the more I realize there is that I don't know. My question for you is, I think just watching you, you're an excellent example, terrific, of showing that you care sincerely. And I'm wondering, aside from emulating how you interact with people or how you show up so genuinely and intentionally, like you said, you sit in the gutter with homeless people, you're not going to condescendingly tell them, oh, God loves you, here's some money or something like that. You give them some time, you experience their life, and you actually listen. It's very rare. What are some other examples that we can implement, the listeners, to show others around us that we care?
Part of the reason that people feel we care is by taking time with people. And I've often said this, that we have become human doings rather than human beings. And we move so fast. And I feel like if you stop and you look and you listen and you take time to have conversations with people. So if I'm going into, let's say, a 7-Eleven and I see a young guy out there asking for money, I don't just give him money. I'll many times sit on the steps and talk with him for 20 minutes. And what I find is many times the guy will say to me, you know what? I don't know the last time I've talked to somebody for so long. Because you got to remember, if somebody's homeless, they're having quick little conversations, and a lot of their thoughts are, getting through their breakthrough or something. But I'll talk to them about things like, hey, what do you think about LeBron coming to the Lakers? Or what do you think about, and I do that on purpose to trigger their thoughts about life. Yeah. So I think one of the things that has been my strength is I give people time. And a a lot of parents have said, man, my kids love being around you. Because, if I'm 6'1" and their kid is like 6 years of age, that means he's a lot smaller than me.
Right.
I'll many times again come down to their level, maybe even sit on the floor and just dialogue with them and say, like, what's your favorite cartoon? And I'll go, oh, I know that person. And they go, you know that cartoon? I go, yeah, I actually know the person who does the voice of that cartoon. No. Like, what movie do you like? Spider-Man. Oh, Spider-Man's my friend. Or what's your other? Iron Man. Oh, I was with Iron Man yesterday. So yeah. I think to stop, look, and listen, man, we could do that. We could do that today. We could do that tomorrow. We could do that the next day.
Stop, look, and listen. That's huge. I completely agree. From what I've experienced, it seems that we are all on a lot of doing instead of just being. It's hard to be present when we got a itinerary of every single day. Do you recommend people leave a 2-hour window open on their schedule so that they can be more free to take that 20 minutes with a guy outside of 7-Eleven?
Yeah, and more than that, I would say that don't be so bound by the schedule. Some of the greatest guys I know, like Lee Iacocca, he was not bound by a schedule. Right. Richard Branson's not bound by a schedule. I think that for me, as much as I've got going on, you gotta be free to call an audible. And for those that don't know what that is, like when you saw Peyton Manning when he was the quarterback for the Colts, he would call an audible and change the play. And so again, there's things I've got to do today, but a friend of mine just called me and told me his brother died. So I changed what I was up to, pulled into a parking lot to have a quality conversation with this man because his brother just died. So I called an audible based on what was going on. So I don't allow myself to be bound by anything. I'm not bound. I'm free.
That's terrific. I want to jump into the Heart Healthy Hustle round. I'm asking you a series of rapid fire questions based on the title of this show. Tim, are you ready?
I'm ready.
First category is heart. What activity do you use to care for and strengthen your internal character?
I study the Bible every day. I love this little documentary. Actually, not a documentary, but it is it's a little journal that I read called Jesus Calling. I have it right in front of me by Sarah Young. And it every day takes you through a devotion. So I read that, and I read the Psalms, Proverbs, or Ecclesiastes every single day. Every single day. Faith cometh by hearing by the word of God. I am a studying machine.
Not only are you a study machine, I've been seeing you posting up a lot on your health recently. You're hyper aware of your age, and you've been implementing some intense training regimens. So how do you maintain your physical health and avoid burnout with everything going on?
Okay, so I am now past 55.
Okay.
And I used to be 25.
Yeah.
And by the grace of God, I have good genes. I've been an athlete all my life. I've played baseball, football, and basketball. And so I'm athletic anyway, but I want to be at just optimum strength, body, soul, and spirit. So I'm in the gym 6 days a week, and I've been in there already today.
You always talk.
I have two trainers.
Oh, wow. Are they for different aspects?
No, it depends on which one is with the girlfriend and which one's not.
Gotcha. Okay. Hustle. What's your main motivation for doing what you do?
It's definitely not to chase anything down because I don't believe in chasing things. I told Oprah Winfrey in her backyard, I said, I don't chase dreams. I cooperate with what heaven said.
Wow.
I am not chasing anything. I'm not chasing anybody. I'm not waiting outside anybody's dressing room for a shot. I am God's man. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And so I've got that much faith in God that I prosper where I'm planted. And if I get good enough at something, they're going to come looking for me. And the Bible says, you see a man skilled at his work, he will serve before kings and will not be obscure. So that's why your life is doing so well, because you're good at what you do and you got my attention, and that's why I'm on your podcast.
I appreciate you, Tim. So it sounds like you're unattached to an outcome.
The outcome is going to come when the outcome comes. And so I'm not tripping on anything. So like some outcome may come, I may do something and it'll come a month later. I may try another project, it'll come 7 years later. But that's okay. I've got so many seeds in the ground that I'm harvesting something right this second. So right this second, I'm harvesting a whole lot. And but there's other things that may take a little bit of time, and I'm okay with that.
For those listening who, not everyone listening believes in God or trusts God, even if they do believe in God, I find that. How has it changed the trajectory of your life when you actually fully trust in God and trust in his power?
I think that to me, it's really not this thing. And I number one, I think you phrased the question correctly. But I think that to me, I think if we just really pay attention and see how amazing life is. When I go to Australia and I've seen kangaroos, when I go to South Africa and I've been on 4 safaris 4 years in a row, I mean, it's hard not to see how amazing God's creation is. So it just made me have a desire to get to know the Creator. Well, how do I get to know the Creator? One is to read about him in the Bible. That helps. The other thing is to fellowship with people that know him. And another thing is to step out by faith and just start to pray to him. Hey, God, if you're real, would you reveal yourself to me? Hey, God, if you're real, will you do me a favor and start to lead me? And I like to start people off in those very simple ways. And the Bible says, if you draw near to me, I will draw near to you. So again, let's not make it so complicated. He desires to have a relationship with us. And as we draw near to him, he draws near to us.
Tim, I really appreciate the time we spent together on this interview. And thank you for providing this valuable insight. I know we're going to impact the world with this episode.
I'm excited, and I look forward to getting to know you better. And I'm very proud of you at this young age for caring enough about people to give them such value and content. And do you mind if I say where my website is? I know you're going to put that.
100%. That's the next question is how can we connect with you after the show?
Okay, so timstorey.com. So STOREY.com. And then the other thing that we're excited about is I have an app, as in APP, and that is found on Apple. You can buy it. And it's called the Utmost app, and it's amazing. And we put new information on it every other week. So it's about $30,000 worth of information that you get for only $1.99. And it's how to live an amazing life in every area of your life. And I will say this, it does very well. The very same app that I use for my entertainers and my athletes and high performance people, you now can get and follow me along every day. It's only $1.99 one time. You don't have to keep paying, just one time.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. We'll go ahead and check out the Utmost app and follow up with you on your website. There's other links on his website too, guys. timstorey.com. Don't forget the E. Tim, before we go, one last word of encouragement you would give to the audience.
Yeah, I'd just like to say this. You may not be what you want to be, but thank God you're not what you used to be. Give yourself a break. Give yourself a break. If you're a little bit chubby, at least you're alive. If you did some stupid stuff, you're still alive to figure it out. You may not be what you want to be, but thank God you're not what you used to be.
Powerful. I'll go ahead and cut the interview there, Tim.
Okay, listen, and when I'm not flying out the door and you're not flying out the door, we'll keep dialoguing. I enjoyed your personality and your way.
Thank you, Tim. Congratulations on making it to the end of this episode. What about this episode stood out to you? Next, I need your help sharing this show. I want this podcast to impact and reach 6,000 people per episode by August 31st, 2019. And I want us to reach 15,000 people per month by March 29th, 2020. Have you been enjoying multiple episodes of The Heart Healthy Hustle? I'm thrilled to share with you an exclusive invitation to join our new Facebook community. To get to know other Heart Healthy Hustlers, simply go to thehearthealthyhustle.com/Facebook, where you can expect to see different members of our community being featured weekly in Facebook Live calls. I appreciate all of your love and support, and I will see you in the next episode. As always, be generous on every occasion. There is a story for you, and live wide open.